How can we just go in, take everything, the beer, the parking, whatever the price of tickets are, and put it in a pot, split it up fairly based on the number of people that come, and they're like, you're going to have to take a pay cut. No problem.
Kind of performance. The idea that you can live at one economic and social level while continuously presenting yourself as the champion of people living at a completely different one. He framed Springsteen's political activism not as courage but as a kind of celebrity theater, disconnected from the communities it claimed to represent. Whether you agree with that assessment or not, it struck a nerve, because it named something that a significant portion of the American public had been feeling for years without anyone prominent enough to say it. It's worth pausing to understand why Springsteen specifically became the focal point here, rather than any of the dozens of other rock icons who could have been challenged. The answer is that Springsteen isn't just a musician, he's a symbol. He represents a particular vision of America, a particular set of values, and a particular political and cultural worldview. When Springsteen speaks, it carries weight far beyond concert ticket sales. He has positioned himself, and been positioned by the media, as a kind of rock music conscience. Challenging him isn't like taking a shot at a random celebrity. It's like challenging the premise itself, the idea that one specific brand of honest, progressive, storytelling rock is the authentic American voice, and everything else is lesser. Kid Rock's entire career argues against that premise. His music doesn't fit neatly into the box that rock criticism built. He never got the serious long-form magazine profiles about his deep artistic vision. He wasn't invited to give speeches at major political events, at least not the ones that got covered reverentially by mainstream outlets. His fans were treated, in many corners of media culture, as something to be explained or analyzed rather than respected. And Kid Rock absorbed all of that, continued selling out shows, continued building his audience, and waited until he had enough credibility and enough distance from needing anyone's approval to say what he actually thought. The generational dimension of this confrontation matters more than people initially gave it credit for. Kid Rock is 55. Springsteen is in his mid-70s. These aren't two men from the same cultural moment firing shots at each other. They represent genuinely different Americas, not just different politics or different musical styles, but different foundational experiences of what this country was and is. Springsteen grew up shaped by the post-war industrial economy, by the civil rights movement, by a specific idea of collective struggle that defined his generation's relationship to work, community, and hope. Kid Rock grew up in a different America entirely, one defined by deindustrialization, cultural fragmentation, growing distrust of institutions, and a sense that the promises previous generations had been given simply weren't going to be honored. You can hear both of those Americas in their music, if you listen carefully. Springsteen's songs about factory towns carry the grief of something that was real and then lost. Kid Rock's music carries the anger and humor of someone who never expected those things to exist in the first place. One is elegy, the other is defiance. And the audience that gravitates toward defiance over elegy is enormous in this country, even if it doesn't always get treated that way in cultural commentary. The political dimension of this story cannot be separated from the musical one, no matter how much some people might prefer that it could. Springsteen has been openly and vocally aligned with progressive political causes for decades. He has criticized conservative politicians, supported Democratic candidates, and used his platform consistently to advance a specific ideological perspective. That is absolutely his right as a citizen and as an artist. But it also means that when he presents himself as the voice of all working Americans, a large portion of working Americans, the ones who hold different political views, look at that claim and feel something closer to alienation than recognition. Kid Rock represents, whatever his flaws and controversies, a different portion of that same working-class America. His fans are real people with real lives who feel just as strongly about their values and their identity as Springsteen's fans feel about theirs. When Kid Rock pushed back on the idea of Springsteen as some universally accepted American truth-teller, he was voicing something those people had felt for a long time. The reaction that followed, online, in comment sections, in conversations between people who don't typically discuss music criticism, showed just how deeply that feeling ran. None of this means Kid Rock is without his own contradictions. He is also a wealthy celebrity. He also navigates the complicated space between performing authenticity and actually living it. He has made controversial statements over the years that have generated significant criticism, and some of that criticism has been entirely fair. The point isn't that Kid Rock is a perfect spokesperson for anything. The point is that his challenge to Springsteen revealed a genuine cultural fracture that had been building for years, and it did so in a way that neither careful journalism nor academic cultural criticism had managed to articulate to the same audience. What this moment really exposed was the myth of the single authentic American voice. For decades, Satan figures in rock music were elevated to a status where their particular perspective was treated as universal, where their understanding of the working class, of struggle, of what America means, was presented as the definitive version. Kid Rock's confrontation with Springsteen challenged that elevation directly. It said, in effect, that there is no single authentic American voice, and that claiming that title while excluding the experiences and values of tens of millions of people is its own form of disconnection from reality. The music industry is navigating a genuinely confusing transition right now, and this conflict sits right at the heart of it. The old gatekeepers, the major labels, the big magazines, the radio programmers, have lost much of their power to shape what counts as legitimate or important. There's a moment in every long career when someone decides to stop whispering and start talking. For Kid Rock, that moment came at 55 years old, and the name he put in the center of the room was Bruce Springsteen. Not a fading act, not some easy target, but one of the most protected, most celebrated names in the entire history of American rock music. The question isn't just what he said. The question is why it landed the way it did, why millions of people nodded along, and what it tells us about where American music and American culture actually stands right now. Kid Rock has never been the kind of artist who plays it safe. Born Robert James Ritchie in Romeo, Michigan in 1971, he spent his entire career doing exactly what the industry told him not to do. He mixed rap with rock before it was fashionable. He threw country into the same blender. He showed up to arenas in trucker hats when other rock stars were obsessing over image consultants. His 1998 breakthrough album Devil Without a Cause didn't just sell. It sold 17 million copies because it connected with an audience that felt invisible to the music establishment. Factory workers, small-town kids, people who drove pickup trucks and didn't see themselves reflected anywhere on MTV. Kid Rock wasn't performing for them. He was one of them, or at least that's exactly how it felt. Bruce Springsteen, on the other hand, built something entirely different. Born in 1949 in Long Branch, New Jersey, Springsteen became the storyteller of a generation. Albums like Born to Run, Darkness on the Edge of Town, and The River turned ordinary American lives into something cinematic and profound. His characters were factory workers, drifters, people chasing a dream that kept moving just out of reach. He sang about the same working-class world Kid Rock would later claim as his own. But Springsteen did it first, and he did it in a way that earned him a level of critical reverence that almost no other rock artist has ever touched. Rolling Stone loved him. Presidents praised him. He became, in the eyes of a very specific cultural establishment, the moral voice of American rock music. And that, right there, is where the tension begins. Because somewhere along the way, something shifted. Springsteen's image, the blue-collar poet, the honest voice of the forgotten American, started to sit a little uneasily alongside his actual life. He performs in stadiums that charge hundreds of dollars a ticket. He owns multiple properties. He campaigns for political candidates and gives speeches at rallies. None of that is unusual for a celebrity of his stature, but it creates a certain friction when your entire brand is built on being the guy who understands the working man's struggle. Kid Rock noticed that friction, and eventually, he decided to say so out loud. The remarks Kid Rock made weren't delivered as a carefully prepared press release. They came the way most things from Kid Rock come, directly, without a lot of diplomatic padding. He questioned whether Springsteen's public persona still matched the reality of who Springsteen actually was. Streaming platforms and social media have given audiences direct access to artists, and artists direct access to audiences, without the traditional intermediaries deciding who deserves to be taken seriously. Kid Rock understood this shift early and adapted to it. He built a direct relationship with his audience that doesn't depend on critical validation. He doesn't need a glowing review to sell out a show. That independence is part of what gave him the freedom to say what he said about Springsteen without worrying about the institutional consequences. Springsteen, for all his genuine gifts, is in some ways the last great product of that old system, an artist whose reputation was built partly through the machinery of critical consensus and institutional support. That doesn't diminish the real quality of his work. Born to Run is an extraordinary record regardless of who said so and why. But it does mean that his status carries with it a certain cultural package that not everyone has agreed to accept, even if they were never given a direct opportunity to say so until someone like Kid Rock gave them a reason to. The fans who erupted on both sides when this story broke weren't just reacting to two musicians. They were reacting to everything those musicians represent. Springsteen fans heard an attack on something they genuinely love, a body of work that has meant something real to them across decades of their lives, and a public figure they see as representing values they hold dear. Kid Rock's fans heard someone finally saying, loudly and without apology, that their experience of America is also real, that their values also deserve respect, and that the cultural authorities who decide who gets treated as authentic have been operating with a bias that they've felt for a long time. Both reactions are understandable. Both contain something true. And that, more than anything else, is what makes this particular moment significant. It isn't a story about who won or lost a public argument. It's a story about a culture in the middle of renegotiating who gets to speak for it, and discovering, sometimes uncomfortably, that no single person or perspective can actually do that job. Rock music has always been at its best when it carries real tension, when it reflects genuine conflict rather than smoothing everything into something palatable. The confrontation between Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen is uncomfortable precisely because it touches real divisions, real frustrations, and real questions about authenticity and representation that don't have easy answers. That discomfort is actually a sign that something genuine is happening, which is more than you can say for a lot of what passes for cultural conversation these days. At 55, Kid Rock made a choice that most artists in his position would never make. He aimed at the biggest, most protected target in his genre and said exactly what he thought. Whether you believe he was right or wrong, whether you stand firmly in Springsteen's corner or find yourself nodding at the critique, you have to reckon with the fact that the conversation he started is one that needed to happen. American rock music, like American culture more broadly, has been pretending for too long that one version of the story covers everyone. It doesn't. It never did. And the sooner that's acknowledged honestly, the sooner something genuinely new and genuinely representative can emerge from the noise. The story of Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen isn't really about two men. It's about a country still trying to figure out whose voice counts, whose experience matters, and what it actually means to be authentic in a place as complicated and contradictory as America. That conversation is far from over. If anything, it's just getting started.